I'm going to begin my homily today with just a little pop quiz. Now, you don't have to show hands or anything, but just in your own heart, answer these questions. And to be sure, there is a right and a wrong answer here. So, first, number one, true or false? The Catholic Church believes that Jesus is God. Again, don't answer out loud, don't raise your hand or anything. Just in your own heart, answer, true or false, the Catholic Church believes that Jesus is God. Number two, true or false, the Catholic Church believes that Jesus is human. Say it again, true or false, the Catholic Church believes that Jesus is human. Number three, this one's multiple choice, 4 possible answers. Jesus is A, 50% God and 50% human. B, sometimes God and sometimes human. C, he was God, he became human for a short time, and now he is God again. Or D, he is fully God and fully human. So go over the answers. Number one, true or false, the Catholic Church believes that Jesus is God. That is true. Number two, true or false, the Catholic Church believes that Jesus is human. That is also true. Number three, multiple choice. Jesus is D, fully God and fully human. And brothers and sisters, it is vitally important that we get this right. Jesus Christ is one divine person with a human nature and a human will. So in other words, the second person of the Blessed Trinity has always existed. There has never been a time when God did not exist as a trinity of persons. Jesus has always been God, but at a very particular moment in time, the second person of the Blessed Trinity assumed a human nature and became one of us. He became fully human while remaining fully God. Now this is vitally important to know, and at the end of this homily, I'm going to explain why. One of the gravest mistakes that we can make as disciples is to think that my opinion or my experience or my own personal belief trumps the defined teaching of the church. The fact that we don't have to make up our faith as we go along is an amazing gift that the church gives us. Excuse me. We do not have to sit and spend time debating the questions that I asked above, because the church has already given us the answers. But, my brothers and sisters, we do need to know those answers, because we have to be sure that our experience and that my own personal belief squares with the belief of the church. So I'll give you an example by what I mean by this. Every so often you've probably heard of people who claim to have had a vision or an apparition of the Blessed Virgin Mary or some other saint. It seems like every year, once or twice, you get some news headline, I saw Jesus in my pancakes, I saw Mary in my breakfast Cheerios, whatever it may be. All well and good. And that does happen sometimes, okay? That does happen sometimes. We know with absolute certainty that Our Lady has appeared a number of times in history. The church has said definitively that Mary really did appear in Fatima, Portugal, in Lourdes, France, in Guadalupe, Mexico, outside of Green Bay, Wisconsin. The only approved Marian apparition in the United States is just outside of Green Bay. And there's a number of other ones. There's a number of purported Marian apparitions that the church has never proclaimed either yea or nay on. The two most famous would be Medjugorje and Garabandal. The church has never said yes or no either way. And there have been a number of times where people have claimed to see the Blessed Mother or Jesus or some saints, and the church has said, no, this is a false apparition. The very first criteria that the church uses to define that is to ask, is what is being said and reported in this apparition, does it square with the defined teaching of the church? Because if it doesn't, we know right away that it's not a true apparition. Because our Blessed Mother would never contradict the words of her Son and the teachings of her Son given to us, mediated through the church. Besides providing security detail for the President of the United States, one of the tasks of the Secret Service is to police counterfeit money. I think I've used this example before, but it bears repeating. In their training, in the training to become a Secret Service agent who works against counterfeit money, they will never in their training see a counterfeit bill. And the reason is that the thought process is, if we give them real ones and twos and five, by the way, a $2 bill does exist for those of you who don't know, but if we give them a real one, a real two, a real 5, 10, 20, 50, and $100 bills, if we show them the real thing so much that they are so familiar with it, that they immediately recognize when a counterfeit one is in their presence, then we achieve the same goal actually more effectively. Well, our faith should be the same way. We should know our faith so well that when we hear something contrary to it, we immediately recognize it and we can immediately reject it. In the reading that we heard today from St. Paul's letter to the Philippians, he gives us the basis for the branch of theology known as Christology. That's what I've been explaining up here since, for the last couple of minutes. The branch of theology known as Christology. What is Christology? It's the study, ology means study, of Christ, the study of who Jesus Christ is. And so everything that I said above, that Jesus Christ is fully God and fully human, that he is a divine person, that means he's God with a human nature, that he chose to be born among us as a man, everything that I shared with you comes from that short little passage from St. Paul's letter to the Philippians that we just read a few moments ago. And in fact, these very few short verses were so important in the life of the early church that we actually believe that what this passage are the lyrics to a song. And that Paul was actually just repeating the lyrics to a song that everyone in that day and age would have known. It's sort of like how we in our day, we might quote the Beatles, or Taylor Swift, or Carrie Underwood, or Snoop Dogg, or Jay-Z, or Lil Wayne, or whomever you happen to like. I think I hopefully covered the whole gamut of musical genres and interests there. But we might quote these people. And when we're talking with someone who's also familiar with the song, they know what we're talking about. That's what St. Paul was doing. He was quoting a song that everyone knew in that day and age about who Jesus was and is. And so now you might be saying, okay, Father, that's all well and good. Who cares? Okay, I'm going to let the theologians worry about that. They get this stuff. I'm going to let them figure it out. I just want to come here. I want to pray. I want to receive the Eucharist. And then I want to go home. It's harvest season. There's football on today. Whatever it may be. Brunches afterwards. Whatever it is. What difference does this make on my life? And so my brothers and sisters, I'm going to propose to you that to know this and to know it well makes all the difference in the world. It impacts literally everything because the incarnation of Jesus Christ impacts everything. I really believe, and here's why this is especially important, I really believe that the vast majority of people go through our lives not really pondering what it is that Jesus has done for us. I think most of us, and oftentimes I have to include myself in this, most of us are content to go about our day with not really a thought given to what could have, and really, if we're honest, should have been our fate, had Jesus not come and redeemed us in his humanity. So to fully understand this, we have to go back to the very beginning. Our first parents, Adam and Eve, they sinned. They irreparably broke their covenant with God. And to be sure, God forgave them. No doubt about that. But that relationship had been damaged beyond repair. No amount of good deeds could make up for that one tiny little sin, that one single solitary act of disobedience. Through that one act, they had won for their descendants, which includes all of us, an eternity of suffering from sin, from sickness, from natural disasters, from suffering, and ultimately, death. Again, this damage This chasm was irreparable. Even the Blessed Virgin Mary herself, conceived without sin, who has never committed a sin in her life, she by herself could not bridge the gap to God. That's another homily for another day. The point is this: we cannot earn our salvation. It's impossible. To draw an analogy, imagine you go to San Francisco, you stand at San Francisco Bay, you take a rock in your hand, you say, okay, I'm going to throw this across the Pacific Ocean, and I'm going to hit some guy walking down the street in Tokyo. Okay, if you have a really good arm, you might be able to throw it 200 feet, maybe. You're not going to throw it across the Pacific Ocean. Our distance from God as a result of sin is exactly the same way. So God had to solve this problem by another way. In other words, he had to become one of us. Now, don't get me wrong, he didn't have to in the sense that he was obligated. God is God. He is not bound to anything. But if he wanted to save us, if he wanted to get us back to himself, the only way that he could do that was to become one of us, to enter into human history. And so what is St. Paul writing about? Just so everybody's aware, St. Paul wrote this letter while he himself was in prison, and a Roman prison was not a walk in the park. It was not a day at the beach. It was a brutal, awful, horrible place that he was suffering while he wrote this letter. But he's writing about how regardless of how bad things get, don't despair. Don't give in to despair, because God has entered into the mess of human history to be with us in the fire in order to bring us out on the other side. Christ gave everything, and St. Paul puts it this way: he emptied himself, taking the form of a slave. And so, brothers and sisters, we should have been the slaves. That should have been us. We should have been the ones on the cross. You, me, our loved ones, all of us. That should have been us. But Jesus Christ took that punishment on himself, so much so that now the church can joyfully proclaim in the Easter Exalted, proclaimed at the Easter Vigil, to ransom a slave, you gave away your son. That's what St. Paul is writing about. And that's what the early church sang about. So joyful they were that God had bridged the gap that our first parents had created. And so I started this homily with a pop quiz. I'm going to finish it with a homework assignment. This week, I invite you to take that second reading to prayer. Maybe take your phone out, take a picture of that second reading before you leave. Hopefully you have a Bible at home. You can just open your Bible up. It's the letter to the Philippians, chapter 2, verses 6 through 11. Sit with it for at least 20 minutes. Oh, 20 minutes, Father, that sounds so long. Yeah, but that's how long it really takes to chew on the scriptures. It takes a minimum of 20 minutes. And I promise every one of us have 20 minutes that we spend on Netflix or on Facebook or scrolling TikTok or whatever it may be. I promise we can find 20 minutes. If you can go longer than that, so much the better. But I invite you to meditate upon what St. Paul has written, what he said in those 5 little verses that shape our entire understanding of who the person of Jesus Christ is. But more importantly, as you read them, as you reflect on them, meditate upon what Christ did for us. Not merely what St. Paul wrote, but what Jesus, God who has become human, what he did in the flesh in order to save humanity and bring us back to God. Praise be Jesus Christ, now and forever. Amen.